Righty. Good morning, everybody. We are here with Bruce Rawles and Lynn Johnson, and we are reading a Ken Wapnick book, and Bruce is going to tell us what that is, right?
It is A Symphony of Love, selections of Dr. Kenneth Wapnick's writings, autobiographies, poetry, short stories, and articles edited by Gloria Wapnick. And that's from the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, which has a website that is facim.org. And you can find all of Ken and Gloria's work there and a whole lot more.
Thank you, Bruce.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, they here's another complaint. They moved where the share button is. It used to be like a little green box that you could always see where the share button, and now it's someplace else. Maybe next time I open it up, it'll be someplace else. So it's kind of called hide the controls. All right. Sounds like an ego game.
Well, it's if you think about duality, um, the dualistic world, there would just be one button in a non-dual world, right?
Hmm.
Um, it would just be accept, allow,
Accept and allow. Oh, I love that.
appreciate, the gratitude, the uh, an unconditional appreciation that would be sure, of course, to everything. That kind of reflects the idea that there's nothing in the world that isn't a gift seen properly.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and as you were just saying that, I was thinking, until you are grateful for it, you don't even know you have it. And
Hmm.
it just came a picture in my mind because I'm always thinking about, having and being are the same thing. And that when we have something, it's like, it just came a picture in my mind when I thought of that, of a like a wedding. And at the wedding, there's a table that's full of gifts that people have brought for the wedding couple. And they're just a table full of gifts over there. The wedding couple knows nothing about what it is until they open it up and they look at it and they say, "Oh, now I have $1,000 from Uncle Ray," or "Now I have a brand new toaster." Until they actually look at it and recognize that that's what they have, they don't have it. It's not even in their mind at all. And that's how we are until we actually look at what we have and
Hmm.
and experience the gratitude for that. uh, we don't even know what it is. We don't even know we have it, and that's why it's so important, uh, in my opinion, and to actively work at gratitude for what you have. So yeah, whenever I have a flash of insight into something or come to understand something that is that has been a mystery to me or whatever, I don't actually have it until I actually look at it and recognize the value of it and experience gratitude for it.
Hmm.
So, these things, being grateful is one of the most helpful tools,
Hmm.
really.
It's receiving, isn't it? I mean,
It's
that's
receiving. That's
that's the
right.
allowing, the letting in, and then once we let it in, and it obviously has to come from a place in our mind, not uh, from the little s self we made, which everything else would be Holy Spirit, which is a reflection of our real identity. Then there's we've excluded the insanity by letting in the sanity, and then we're sharing the sanity because minds are joined.
Yeah, yeah. Just as easily. I mean, we share the insanity too, and that's what we have to stop.
Mhm.
Stop the madness. All
Well, should we
right.
start reading?
Absolutely. Let's start our reading. Um,
Would you like me to start off with My
sure.
Brother Calls?
Yes.
Okay. So here's one of Ken's poems where we've been reading for a few weeks now. This one's entitled My Brother Calls. My brother called. I did not know his name. I answered, though not sure of who he was, nor what he was to me, nor I to him. I called to him, not knowing why I did, or what my questions asked, or what they said. Salvation's form so often lies concealed behind a screen that looks like what is not. God asks but that we do his will and leave all understanding to his holy self. My brother calls, but now I know his name. My brother calls, oh Jesus, it is you. Wow, I mean that's a great restatement of not only course principles but the inspiration that uh, in the beauty of behind the words that Ken just wrote there, knowing that every call for love or expression of it really is the Holy Spirit in our mind asking for us to accept, to receive, to allow, to let in with in gratitude, and then the appreciation then acknowledges our receipt of that that love, and it then flows through us, through our minds, to all minds. And when we're not doing that, it's just because we've put a metaphoric tourniquet on our mind, and we call that tourniquet ego. It constricts the flow of the loving kindness that is our true nature.
Yeah. Uh, and that's what is happening all the time is
Mm-hmm.
my brother is calling,
Right.
calling for love. And when I look at it and I say, "Oh, that's spam," I'm not going to answer that. But maybe it might not be spam. Let me call it back and see what it is. And um, I'm not saying you should call back on any spam numbers or check them out, but knowing that you don't know who's calling, it could be uh, the person who's going to be with you for your entire life, who's going to love you forever. It could be the person that's you don't know who it is. But you have to know that it's always the Christ. It's always Jesus. It's always the Christ, no matter what. So these calls for love that we see so prevalent in the world right now, it's pretty evident uh, that that some people are feeling a real push to find that love that they think they're missing, and they're doing it and all looking for love in all the wrong places,
Mm-hmm.
doing it all in ways that are possibly hurtful, um, or appears to be hurtful to other people in the world. And we don't want to answer the call. We want to hang up. We want to block the number. Don't let them try that again. But it is the Christ that's calling every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter. It is just like these scammers, spammers. They're you block the number, they get another one. You block that one, they get another one. They're going to keep getting numbers and calling until the answer comes. And so, what is the answer? The answer is not, um, I'm going to block you. The answer is, I'm going to answer your call for love with love. And remember that it is only the Christ that's calling. We don't have to. I think this is so funny because I'm just relating it. It says behind a screen that looks like what is not. My phone screen saying potential spam, or or my eye screen that says, "Oh, look, he's posting the image of himself looking like Jesus. What is he? Who does he think he is?" Um, you know, it's a screen. It's
Yeah.
all being seen on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's
As
hilarious.
as you're saying that, Lena, it occurs to me that um, if we accept the call for love or the expression of love that everyone is making, regardless of the form, no matter how buried it seems to be on a level of form in terms of behavior and expression, um, then we're blocking the insanity, but we're allowing the call through. We're allowing the real message, which is I want to go home, and I don't know how. In the vast majority of our feedback from the world, and that's why there's so much emphasis on the course and looking at how we think about everyone, because that's basically what's coming back to us uh, in terms of our experience of the world. And that's why we can be afford to be grateful to everything that the world is expressing, because it's showing us what's in our unconscious mind. And if it isn't completely peaceful, it means we've got more forgiveness to do. I was thinking about this wonderful line. There's 24 instances the word uphold in the course, and if you go to the web edition and put uphold in the search function, the first of those 24 gives you this wonderful quote that I finding more and more helpful, and that is, "I will love you." Jesus is talking to us, and he says, to our decision-making minds in particular, as he always does, "I will love you and honor you and maintain complete respect for what you have made." Uh, so in other words, I will let the call in, but I will not uphold it unless it is true. I will never forsake you any more than God will, but I must wait as long as you choose to forsake yourself. So, in other words, it's kind of like Jesus screening our mind's calls and saying, I'm going to let the ego messages go to voicemail and delete them, and once I see what they are, but I'm going to let the real call for help, for loving kindness, come straight through, and I will respond to that and always provide the correction necessary in every moment.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that, I think that's a fun thing to do too, to search the course for a phrase or a term, or a word, and then just see how it plays out, how many times it's used, and how uh, it just goes together so beautifully. That's another reason why I can't even imagine this came from just a person just writing out word after word after word on a steno notepad. Because in order to come up with something that is so holographically perfect like that, you would have to use a really like an AI.
Well, I think any AI in this world is going to fall short of the the absolute inspiration
Yes.
that the AI of the mind behind the course and any ego-free um, material, as reflected in the world. Um, it doesn't mean that there aren't inconsistencies on the level of form, but what's completely consistent in the course is the content that comes from the non-dual presence, the ego-free presence in our mind that reminds us that everything the ego does is comes from a place of hate and fear, and everything that the Holy Spirit does comes from a place of forgiveness and correction that leads us back to the real love that we never left.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just perfect. It's just so consistent and so perfect that it's hard to even imagine how we would have a question about it. Um, so wow. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I did click on that link to go to where uphold. And Robert's asking, does this come under do whatever your brother asks? Um, I'm not sure, but uh, um, that do what?
I think it applies in the sense that what would respond to the real call, which is the real call for real help, which is, and the response to that is always nothing happened. Um, you're innocent, everyone's innocent, or some variation of that, but it's the content's always the same. So, but uh, by making another person wrong, we're basically responding from the ego. Doesn't mean that we don't apply correction on a level of form where it's appropriate. Like if someone's, like a classic example is, if a kid is not looking and walking into traffic or running into traffic, a loving parent might grab 'em by the arm and yank them out before they get ground under. But the response, um, in the next moment is kind of the telling one. Is like if the words that come out of the parent's mouth or "you jerk, you'll never amount to anything" because you're just clueless. That's a very different response of "I love you. I don't want you to have a
Yeah,
really short lifetime because I want you around. I think you're infinitely worthy," or something equivalent to that, So, but you need to look where you're going if you want to survive. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's a very very different message, right?
It's a very different message. And I think the point of that particular section or passage that says, at whatever your brother asks you, do it. The the point of it is because he believes that that is his salvation. And
Yes,
you believe that not giving it to him is your salvation.
right.
So that's the point of all that is the belief that it's my salvation, that people may do things on a whim or whatever. We're not being asked to agree with, their decision to run into traffic, but we're definitely, um, you know, aware of whether it's something that they really want or they really believe is their salvation or not. And, yeah, to a kid, oh my gosh, I got to get my ball that ran out into the street, and to them, that's the most important thing in the world. That's what we have to understand about these requests from our brothers. It's the importance that they're putting on it that is it's not helpful for me to judge that and say, well, that ball is not more important than your life, or of course I'm going to say that and think that, and they would agree with me on that if they had the wherewithal to see it that way. But a lot of people are not seeing, or they don't have the ability to see the consequence of their thoughts or their actions, um, beyond whatever is the first thing right in their thing. My ball ran into the street, so uh, not giving it to them also can help them to stop and take a look. So I think the what Jesus is telling us is don't just let them run out in the street,
Hmm.
uh, because that's not really what they want.
Yeah, and again, it's back to the level of confusion.
Yeah, yeah,
It's question
yeah.
always is, I just found that I think the two of the pertinent quotes in that question is, one is recognize what does not matter, and if your brothers ask you for something outrageous, do it because it does not matter. Refuse in your opposition and establish that it does matter to you. And then just to clarify, it's really grant the request for loving kindness that has been asked of you is really what's being asked. And don't make the person wrong because of whatever they're doing on a level of form behaviorally. And then the clarification that further, I think, eliminates more level of confusion is, that was the first one is in chapter 12. This next one is chapter 16. And the meaning of love is lost in any relationship that looks to weakness and hopes to find love there. The power of love, which is its meaning, lies in the strength of God that hovers over it and blesses it silently by enveloping it in healing wings. Let this be, and do not try to substitute your miracle for this. And then this is the part that's probably more pertinent. I have said that if a brother asks a foolish thing of you, to do it. But be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either him or you, for what would hurt one will hurt the other. Foolish requests are foolish merely because they conflict, since they always contain some element of specialness. So again, more clarification to avoid level of confusion and thinking, oh, I should do something physically that's asked. Well, what's really asked is to be able to see and consistently that everyone here is fighting a hard battle, and that kindness is always what's being asked, and the acceptance of sinlessness, and that nothing happened, aka the atonement principle, is always what people are asking for. We don't recognize it because we're blinded by the form, by the behavior.
Exactly. And Robert is saying that he's asking that question because he takes medications because he has a lot of body health issues. And he would prefer not to take the medications, but his doctors and his wife would be unhappy if he didn't.
Sure,
And and so
sure.
he's taking them. And and I think about that too. I take a lot of medication for all these different little symptoms that keep popping up. And it just is amazing to me. I was meditating last night after I had taken my, I take all these vitamins and minerals
Oh, me
and
too. I was just loading up my 2-week vitamin plastic tray
yeah,
for the keep in the fridge this morning.
you got your whole setup there,
Yeah.
right? And so, I'm taking all these and I'm thinking, what is really happening? Because, I'm swallowing, they're going to my stomach, they're being mushed up and mixed with everything I ate today and everything else that I drank and all this stuff. And they're all being made into like a sludgy, sludgy stuff, something of that nature. And somehow or the other, my body knows the stuff that's going out into the bloodstream, that this goes to this part of my body and that goes to that part of my body and this goes here, and some of these things are long-term things that are taking place over a period of time. Um, and all of this stuff is going, how does this happen? And it was like it just I just
It's
had
all
to laugh.
magic here.
It's magic.
It's
It's just
all magic here. Anything on the level of form is just magic.
just magic.
It's just an incredibly sophisticated dream that we ascribe magical properties to, and we think, oh, well, if I do this, this will happen. And
Yeah,
we make all these incredibly absurd laws. We call them physics, we call them chemistry, we call them biology, we call it science. And and I think one of the classic rebuttals to that is one of Ken Wapnick's audios where he talks about, when 2 + 2 = 5, which is
uh,
basically saying, don't trust anyone who tells you that 2 + 2 = 4 because they believe the world is true.
yeah.
And obviously there's that perfect level of confusion example. And you wouldn't teach your kids that 2 + 2 is 5. That would be very counterproductive for someone trying to figure out the world and get around in it. But metaphysically, if I can remember that, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which I think that's a great example of, then all the little pieces that I've made out of wholeness, out of oneness, are not going to equal the totality and the oneness. And all the little special objects, the little particular specific things that my mind has cut, carved, hacked, and hewed into little bits and pieces, and carved out of unity, it says in one of the workbook lessons, I think, that those are not, the dismembered mind is not going to remember itself without Holy Spirit's correction, which says nothing happened. You haven't you haven't pushed Humpty Dumpty off the wall. You haven't broken the holographic pane of glass into a gazillion pieces. It never, those things never happened. So you don't have to repair anything, but you have to be willing to look with Holy Spirit above the battleground and see that you're watching an elaborate dream of pan-galactic proportions that suggests that we pulled off this impossible crime, this tiny mad idea of that we could take a big bang and explode what's one, and not only make it leave the mind, but also become matter and have it matter, have it be big deals. In fact, the
It's
big
so funny.
dealness is enormous that if we make of things, right?
Exactly. I just was watching a
Magical.
video this morning. This guy was saying, and it just is hilarious. Well, in this universe, there are only two elements, hydrogen and helium. That's the only thing there is, hydrogen and helium. All the rest of the stuff is just some combinations of that, and there's very little of it. The entire universe, he was saying how many, like, 90% of everything in the entire universe is hydrogen and helium. And and it was just cracking me up because yes,
Well, except there's that one that bureaucracies are made out of. It's called administration. Right?
oh, administration.
I've heard some various rebuttals to
That's funny.
those periodic table proponents. Yeah.
Yes, and boy, and it's everywhere. So, but yeah, it just is so funny. You talk about the magic. You're talking about the mathematics, and I was reading a thing about a really beautiful thing about calculus yesterday, and how beautiful it is that it integrates all this stuff, and I was thinking, well, that's magic too. It's all magic.
Actually, since you mentioned that, I don't usually talk much about calculus, but when I went to the dentist recently, they suggested a different toothbrush, and it's removing a lot of the calculus on my teeth.
Oh, that's good. Is
So
it?
it just seems to do a better job. So
Oh my gosh, better than that little pick thing that they pick at it with. Oh yeah. Okay.
actually, I'm deeply indebted to the inventors of those little floss sticks because to me, flossing with just the string by itself has never been fun and always problematic because my teeth are too close together and they get stuck. So those
Yeah.
little floss sticks to me are like one of the best medical breakthroughs ever.
I've got like 4 bags of them, one in each bathroom. They're
Yeah,
everywhere.
good stuff, aren't they?
They
I
are
mean,
good stuff.
of course, the archaeologists of the future will discover that a huge percentage of the Earth's mass is composed of floss sticks at some point. But
That's right.
that's a future problem, right? That's
For
for
plastic bottles
for
and
future
plastic.
generations to solve.
That's hilarious. Yes. All right, let's get under. I'm going to read the
I
next
think we should.
one.
I think we
Okay.
should.
All right. So now we know it's only Jesus. Jesus is calling. That's the only one. All right. Let's see the next one. I love your holy Son, Father, for you have sent him to me as your own, that I may, through the forgiving eyes of Christ, see all the glory of myself that shines in him. I love you, Father, as I love your Son. For what is joined as one cannot be two. And what I love in you is there in me and all your sons who come with me to you. It's beautiful and very straightforward.
Mhm.
It's a cuckoo cuckoo.
And that's basically it ties into what we were talking about before. That deep appreciation that really reminds us that there's nothing but perfect oneness. Truth is true and nothing else is true. And that's reflected in Ken's poetry, regardless how early. Yeah. Like the previous one, let only what I want to be what I want be what I see, but let only what is truth be my reality. Let only what is unchanging and eternal be how I see everyone else, which is to say, the innocence um, overrides and trumps the insanity that the ego would have us believe is real. And we can look at it but screening our calls mentally, so to speak, is basically just saying, oh well, that's the caller ID. If when it shows any variation of ego, that just goes to voicemail, and then we can make it delete automatically. But we have to look at it. We have to look at all the insanity, because if we just let it go straight into the main processor, it becomes the malware of our mind. But if we can just look at it as it's coming in, all those little random thoughts about grievances and upsets and the temptation to feel unfairly treated, that's the that's the mental spam that's coming in all the time. And to train our mind to recognize even the tiniest little shred of poor little me or martyrdom or being righteously indignant about anything, um, or just mildly annoyed, that form doesn't matter. I mean, it's not whether it's a Holocaust or a hangnail, right?
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. And that
And that takes practice, of course, to
yeah, yeah.
generalize
Well,
it.
but that practice of seeing it all the same is what is the work that we're doing. It's not being magnanimous and forgiving this or that, or rising above the battleground. Yes, that is, that is really what has to happen, and all of that. But what happens when you rise above the battleground? You go to the moon and take a picture of the earth and, look for individual people. You're not going to see them because it's all going to be the sameness. You're going to see certain shapes. Go, even farther away and look at the earth, and you're not going to see the shapes of the oceans or the continents or anything. You're just going to see a blue sphere,
The blue dot, as Carl Sagan said, when
a blue
when the
dot.
when the
Exactly.
Voyager photos sent back a picture that just like not even a full pixel, I think is how they described it, was came back on the Voyager imagery when Voyager was at the edge of the solar system, or close, give or take a little bit, and after it had been streaming out from the center of the solar system for a decade or two or three or whatever it was. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
The
that's
big
it.
blue marble, and it's the blue dot in Ken's chart. Everything's happening in that blue dot, just as everything seems to be happening in the blue marble that we call Earth. Well, the Course's metaphysics takes it a step farther and deeper and says, well, the entirety of space and time is coming from that decision maker in the mind that was represented by a little blue dot in Ken Wapnick's metaphysical charts. And that's where we're either deciding for ego, for the fear and the condemnation and the sin and guilt and mortality of what comes and goes, the dust to dust, or we're looking for the eternal light that doesn't know anything about the separation. It doesn't know anything about being apart from any other part because there's no parts. It's perfect
Because there's no
oneness.
parts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, so it's just seeing that it's all one thing,
yep.
just all one thing. And the variations of frequencies that make different colors or whatever, they all blend together from that place. And it is just all one thing. And if you could really understand that or know that, then all the differences that seem to be so special between people and systems, politics, religion, whatever, all of that would be like reduced to a single layer, a single molecule, basically, and we would be no longer um, arguing with it.
Hmm.
Because you can't argue with something that's saying the same thing. You may think you can, and I've done that a lot of times,
Oh
argue
yeah,
with people and turn out, oh, we're just saying the same thing, only
yeah.
using different words.
Right, right. Uh,
But go ahead.
I was going to say, because what we really are is the same. And just think of how many battles have been made in our, Tower of Babel, Tower of Babel. I'm still only slightly spooneristic. Uh, uh, of wanting to be separate, we made not only different languages, but different interpretations of different words, and doubling up on the meaning of words so that there's ambiguity and everything in this world. But yet there's just one meaning to the Holy Spirit, and that is the truth is true. And then the rebuttal to the ego is the contrapositive. Is that right? That nothing else is true. So
Yeah, yeah,
then I'd like to read the next little bit of prose. Seems like it's more prose than a poem in terms of the way it's formatted. Very short. And I also put in the chat a link to a blog post I put on ACIM blog. Looks like about a year and a half ago. Um, where this is October of 2024. And the title of this blog post is "The Most Neglected Election. Which thought system am I always voting for?" In fact, if I may, I'd like to read the first paragraph of that little blog post.
Yes, please.
Sure, I just wrote, the media gives a lot of airtime to political elections in the USA. Still, the constant, profoundly underreported election, almost completely neglected, is which thought system are we're voting for. We're all voting every second of every day for either the thought system of peaceful sanity, total inclusion, tolerance, patience, and gentle forgiveness, or insane conflict, unstable exclusion, and fearful condemnation. This election occurs in everyone's mind all the time and represents the real power we all have to determine the state of our being. And I should probably could have put there, not so much the state of our union, it's on the level form, or better said, whether or not we're aware of our real eternal identity. It makes sense to vote for the political candidates we hope will serve our country best. However, unlike those opportunities that only arise every couple of years, we have vastly more freedom and opportunities every moment to exercise a tremendously overlooked prerogative for choosing what can make a real and significant difference, voting for fear or love, fleeting or lasting, frustration or laughter. So anyway, I put the link to that in the chat, and then I think it fits very nicely with what Ken just wrote here. On October 30th, 1976, which I believe was an election year too. Right. So anyway, um, he wrote, the vote itself does not matter. The ballots have already been cast, but to vote does matter. Why should you keep yourself apart from your brothers? Join them in this holy task and know that I will be there too. Vote as you think you should, but see it as a way of joining with all your brothers in salvation. And then whatever lover you choose will be a vote for love.
Yeah, that that makes sense. And I love the idea uh, that the ballots have already been cast
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because it's over.
The
The
script
dream is
is written.
over.
Yeah.
And so we voted that vote a long time ago.
Right.
And, if we could understand that we are just walking through that story that was already written, uh, it would make a huge difference in the way that we experience this world right now. It does for me, because then whenever anything comes up, I'm like, well, it's done. I don't know what anything is for. And I know as many people voted for what I voted against, and I voted against what they voted for. It's the same thing. But but really, it's already done. The story was written, and until we understand the moral of the story, and why we're reliving it over and over again. We're just going to keep reliving it over and over. This is 1970 freaking six. I'm sorry to tell you. That's what is that, 50 years ago? Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and who was it? Maybe Ronald Reagan. I don't know who, but he's writing this in October, of course. So that it's not the election that just occurred, because the election occurs in November. So he's saying in October, it's already occurred.
Yeah. It was
It's
Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford.
wow.
Uh, yeah, so that's I had to look it up.
Wow.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a significant, actually, to me, very significant election, because that's the first time I think I saw uh, goodness and morality win out. When Jimmy Carter got elected. People complained about him forever, but it's turning out now that he was probably one of the best presidents we ever had.
Seems like, yeah. And again, I think the important reminder that I have to keep reminding myself is that everyone has the two thought systems in their mind. There's no, total ego or no total Holy Spirit, because that's what our classroom is for every particular seeming individual. There's those two thought systems because we made a split mind so that we would have that to choose from. And it's basically um, an opportunity to look for every one of us to see not only that is that true for everyone we meet or think about, but it's true for ourselves. And we can't exclude ourselves from that schism that the ego made, but we need to heal that schism by looking at all the specifics that seem to be out there, all the alleged others, whether they're political figures or family members or drivers on the road that we may or may not agree with their behavior. Any all the cliches and non-cliches of things that in the world seem to impact us that are really just reflections of our choice in the mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, there's nothing to choose. Nothing
Not
to
really.
choose.
Well, I scrolled ahead a little bit. I think in my digital version, we're on page 103, and it looks like before we get to part three, we still have about 20, 20 some odd pages of 25 or so pages of poetry.
Let's get reading in.
We're crawling along, but that's fine. But it's not like there's any time schedule here. But and Ken's poems warrant a lot of great discussion too. And we may be reading this for a few years more, like we have with several of the works that we've gone through, and that's totally fine. I just thought I'd kind of put a little perspective on, we're just kind of partway through Ken's poetry
Are you
prose.
saying time marches on?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it seems to march on. It was over long ago, right?
All right, so let me read your name. Your name, dear Jesus, is my greeting when I wake, the first word on my lips as I begin a day which carries me along to do your will. Once spoken, it remains all day and is the last word that I speak when night has come. A word is still a word, and yet it stands for God's most gentle word, the word you are and bring with you to bless, to comfort a world weary to recall the message of your life taught. Jesus, Jesus. No words more sweet a lover ever spoke, nor lips more grateful be for their sweet sound. My heart but fills with love as your name comes to comfort and to hold my tiny life. In your embrace, which lifts me high above the world of sorrow and of pain I made, you gently bring me down to a new world of beauty and of loveliness that seemed so distant from reality until your name appeared and changed all things to light. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, you alone bring hope to me and all our brothers who love you, without whom our lives would be but death, but now attain eternity with you. So that's a beautiful poem too.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love it. And people and a lot of people say, well, that the word Jesus, the name Jesus doesn't mean anything, but the Course says yes, it does. And you call on that name.
Well,
Um,
the word doesn't mean anything, but the idea behind the word means everything. In the same way that any word in the course on its own and out of context and dragged down into the dream of form is meaningless. But
yes,
left where it brought back to its source in the mind, in which case is the Christ mind, which is not just isolated to the A Course in Miracles, but to anything, any ego-free expression, um, and really the source of the expression, that becomes uh, our way back. That becomes our guiding light to this like Ken and Gloria shows the lighthouse, that it's the light that doesn't change that leads us back. I had to chuckle when, as you're reading that, and I was thinking about how um, I try to practice that every morning when I wake up, is to be, think of maybe not of Jesus, but any Holy Spirit, any ego-free presence, but just to have the awareness of dreaming. And the only thing that really helps us become aware of that we're dreaming is that uh, it doesn't have to be a symbol, but something that reflects um, that choice in our mind that says, "Oh yeah, I'm having a dream experience here." But Jesus is the course's reflected word for the Holy Spirit and the representative for that, and represents only that correction and not any of the ego uh, absurdity, insanity. So, so what made me giggle is I was thinking, the first word on my lips as I begin a day, and I was thinking of this morning, as many other mornings in our household. Sometimes I hear, uh, and I'm participant as well as recipient of hearing the, oh Jesus, the cat's just puked on the carpet again. Although I don't usually use that term, but
Yep.
but
Well, he's the one you should tell.
but I think that's why Ken says, not only just humorously, but actually why we need to forgive Jesus, not only for all the biblical misunderstandings and the things attributed to him, but and the things that a lot of biblical scholars would say, hey, you're making stuff up here big time. We don't really know the real story of the personage that is being described of in not only of course in miracles, almost completely about the idea, but not the form, but certainly the Christian Bible and all of its variations that um, got a few things right, but a whole lot was distorted. And the very foundation, as Ken and Gloria point out in several of their works, that the whole premise of it, if you really look at the content, is duality, and the course's content is non-duality. So the very foundation of those two works is completely different. And trying to reconcile a duality with non-duality is never going to work.
Yeah, yeah. Although, the premise, I mean, obviously, if you've ever read Joel Goldsmith, he read only the Bible because he didn't have A Course in Miracles, and he came to the same conclusions as A Course in Miracles about all of it. It's like, how could he have come to that conclusion? But because he was able to, through guidance, read the words and see the truth, and see beyond the crap that was put in there. He had such a divine mind, Joel did, that he could see the truth in everything. And I could only pray to have that kind of clarity with stuff. But there's times I read things in Joel that are exact words that are written in the course. And Joel died before Helen ever started hearing the voice.
Uh,
So, I
yeah, it's not like that Helen had a monopoly on truth. I think the reason you and I are talking right now, and so many other people around the world, millions of people have bought the course in 27 languages, and because we're drawn to something that's beyond the appearance of um, a world that doesn't make any sense.
right.
There's got to be something more, as Helen and Bill said to each other, right?
Exactly.
Must be a
I
better
see
way.
Deb has her hand up. Hey, Deb. Good morning.
Hi, thank you so much. And I was writing things in the chat, and then I realized when I listened to Lynn about, hearing it. Who did you say? Oh, Joel Goldsmith. His poetry is the same writing I've heard from ancient mystics, poets, 11th century monks. It's the same in, The Cloud of Unknowing, in Teresa of Avila's writings,
Uh-huh,
in St.
uh-huh.
John of the Cross. I've
Yep,
heard the
yep.
exact same language.
Yeah. In
Like,
fact,
to me, it's a song from inside.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for
So,
that. Yeah.
yeah, like.
Oh, go ahead.
And then I was asking questions like, was he known for his poetry? Did he read them in some of his? I've never even seen a YouTube of him reciting.
I think it's just in this, well, at least I am not familiar with anything outside of this book that we're reading.
It does blow my mind because it is a language that is in all those writings. You really can
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
it. Oh,
yeah.
beloved,
Uh-huh.
and Bismillah, Ilah, Ilah, like my beloved, only beloved, all beloved. I mean, every language
Hmm.
has it
Yeah.
um, in
Like Rumi
its,
and Hafiz, for example.
yes, in its
Yeah, yeah,
ancient
yeah,
language.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
And I
it's
think it's
so
all reflection
beautiful.
of the fact that, in how could truth be restricted to a particular era? I mean, because the people that came before the course was available, they had to have the same opportunity and the same resource in their mind, just as we all do. And I think, again,
It's
the
the
course,
language of love, though, and divinity and
yeah, yeah.
oneness.
Exactly. And
Like,
it's not the words, it's really the meaning behind the words that is a very Platonic idea that the course is really profoundly aligned with, that Platonic thought, realm of thought, that the symbol should never be confused with the source. And I think that's what gets us into all kinds of mischief and to use a line from
that's
Juno movie,
beautiful. Thank you.
shenanigans. Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah. And Ken himself did several some of his small books are about Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross. And we just read one of those in not too long ago in the Thursday night sessions of a School for A Course in Miracles, in fact. So about the St. John of the Cross and the Thunder of the Meaningless is the one we're reading right now, which kind of fits in nicely. Yeah. But I mean, Ken's work is so prolific. But like you say, countless mystics and saints and sages over the millennia have been aware of the non-dual profundity of our being and tried to express it in words, and some have done pretty great job. But it's not the words; it's the ideas behind the words, and it's the spirit behind the form, and that's why the course says so eloquently, nothing so blinding as form, and never confuse symbol with source. Very, very Platonic ideas. Thank you, Plato.
Yeah, thank you, Plato. Rafi has his hand up. Rafi, please go ahead.
Yeah, while I'm listening to all of this truth, a lot of resistance comes up. My mind is saying, I don't want to hear this, I don't want to deal with this. I don't. And it hit me that the amount of resistance is there because the truth is so powerful. If the truth wasn't, if this wasn't true, there wouldn't be any resistance. So I thought, oh, this is so great. There is further proof of the efficacy and the truth of all of this. So that, of course, resistance is just another feeling, and I welcome him up and letting it go. But is another indication of how everything is here is working for our ultimate good. Even something like resistance, which seems like it's opposed to everything that's real, came up to show us the power of what is real. So then I could just again welcome the resistance and letting it go and letting it go. And gonna go. The smile on my face is gonna break my head in two. Thank you.
That's great, Rafi. Hey, as you're saying that, it occurs to me, it kind of ties into what Lynn was talking about screening the spam calls. And yet we need to know what's in our unconscious mind. So that's why, Ken brilliantly and so almost inexorably keeps coming back to the idea that we get what we need from the world constantly, and the resistance is like the spam call that comes in from the ego that says, I don't want to buy this, because I know that if you listen to this truth, this inspiration, this voice of reason, um, I'm going to be cut out of the picture, that the silly, seemingly separate self that I made up is no more, and I'm going to see game over. I can't have that. So the resistance is a hugely helpful concept that, thanks, tip of the hat to Freud, where we just need to keep looking at all the resistance that we have to the truth and not be blindsided by it, but, like you say, be grateful when we notice it, and then see, oh, I could see peace instead of this, and I'm not upset for the reason I think. I can look at the ways that my ego wants to fight everything in the course tooth and nail, and do just everything it can to sabotage and undermine its ideas, because we still primarily, I'm speaking for myself, mostly have a masochistic thought system running the show. It's the ego's malware that is what we need to look at, and then use Holy Spirit's debugging software to antiviral software to pull out all those malicious lines of code, which is all the grievances, all the upsets, all the resistance. But we need to look at it. So it's very helpful to notice it with the Holy Spirit's correction in mind. So anyway, thank you so much for that. And it looks like we're about out of time for this week. So looking forward, as always, to picking up next week where we left off. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Bruce, Rawls. I appreciate it very much and look forward to seeing you again next week. We go ahead and close out the